Welcome, Dan Murray, to the branded, or Dan Murray-Serter, I should say. Do not be confused with the marketing millennials. Dan
true.
Murray. That's who someone said. I think it was you that said that. Oh, it's Dan Murray coming in. Why are you coming on the stage?
It's funny, I'd never heard of that guy until I got married, and then I was like, I'm gonna, be one of those woke, progressive human beings that assimilates both sides of male and female. And then
hyphenates the name.
Yeah, it's funny though, because actually it's always women who just like cut off the last part, and I'm like, oh, so women don't actually respect that at all. And men are always like Dan Murray-Serter, and women are always like Dan Murray. And I'm like, oh, they've just cut my wife right out of the picture again.
I'm so sorry.
No,
sorry, Miss Serter.
I enjoy it because it just reinforces some of my banter back to my wife.
Masculine strength in your name. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Like, we've been connected for a while, and I've been following you for a long time before we connected, obviously through the Secret Leaders podcast, and you've done a phenomenal job with that. But I want to start, if possible, with heights, because I feel like if people don't know who you are, they'll know what heights is. I'm a fan of heights. I take heights every morning, even though it makes my pee yellow.
It does make your pee yellow, yeah.
But it's an incredible supplement brand, and you've done an amazing job to kind of build a product around the specific people that you're trying to build it for, which is like high-performing individuals, entrepreneurs, etc. So you started it in 2018. Why, first and foremost?
Yeah, so I was coming off the back of a pretty intense experience with insomnia. I had insomnia for 6 months. I'd had multiple mental health issues over like 10 years, but insomnia was the worst thing that I had.
What do you think kicked that off?
Well, I know what kicked it off now, which was poor nutrition, basically. And I went to the doctor. He gave me sleeping pills. He recommended a whole bunch of people for me to speak to, psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. I did all of those things. None of them worked. 6 months later, I was having dinner with a friend, just some random Australian girl with no expertise in like nutrition or anything, but she was like, it sounds like you got a brain health problem. Yeah. It just so happened that she was really big on nutrition and understood things. And she was like, you should go and see a dietitian. And I was like, why would I do that? Nothing like, I've got a mental health problem, not anything else. Anyway, I went, and the dietitian immediately was just like, I reckon you're deficient in these vitamins. So go to, and she basically said at the time, go to Planet Organic, which I thought was a bit OTT.
Bit spenny.
A bit spenny, but I learned, right? So she was like, you can't go to Boots or Holland and Barrett to get the scientific dosages of the things you need. Like, she was the first person who ever explained to me, with supplements you get what you pay for. So if you're spending £10 at Holland and Barrett on products and you think you're getting a great deal, and you look on the front on the claims and they're exactly the same as one that's 40, 50, 60, whatever, you're constantly obviously like, well, I'll just get the cheap one. It does the same thing. They say the same thing. But actually, if you knew how to read the labels and you turn them around, you'd find out that the one that's £40 has 4 times as much, 5 times as much in it. They have the scientific dosages. So there's a big discrepancy between the marketing amount that you can put in as a minimum and make a claim and the scientific dosage. But there's no difference in the claims that you can make, like in a marketing point of view. So the high quality products and supplements all have a big problem, which is they can't communicate that they're better. They just have to go on informed customers to know that, or recommendations from health professionals who very rarely would ever be like, go to Holland and Barrett and Boots. They'd be like, go to Planet Organic.
Yeah.
So, or Whole Foods, or specifically give you a link on Amazon. So, I was like, okay, this is weird and interesting, but fine, I'll listen to you. And she recommended DHA omega-3, blueberry extract, and B vitamin complex. So I was like, okay. I mean, I'm a skeptic. I don't take supplements. I don't really believe in this stuff. However, but I think most of that is because, other than being, a white male, therefore assuming I know everything about everything, I was just like, I've always heard that supplements don't work. So therefore, why would I bother? As you explained, well, most supplements don't work because most people get them from the high street. But if you get the potent ones, and she was also like, don't tell a dietitian or nutritionist that something doesn't work. That's like our fucking job. So, and you're coming in here from like, with a mental health problem. Right. And you got a mental health problem. You're in my clinic, aren't you? Nothing's worked. And you're telling me, anyway, how about you just go and do the thing? So I did. She was very surly. But I did what she said. And within like 2-3 days, I had my first night's sleep in months, and then the next night, and then the next night.
Oh, wow.
And so I just sort of called her up and was like, this is unbelievable, what's going on? And she's like, well, you probably were just deficient. It's very, very, very common, especially in the UK, where we've got lots of ultra processed food. People think they've got really good diets. They've actually got a lot of malnourished, like general diets. You have to be really well informed and really, really on it to actually be getting the right amount of vitamins and nutrients you really need. And so for her, it was kind of obvious because this stuff kept happening. And the less obvious thing that people don't know is so many, and she kept telling me this, like 50% of the people that came to her with problems had mental health problems that she could cure with some form of nutrition, whether that's supplements or just a change in their diet. She was explaining, everyone who has a mental health problem assumes it's a psychological issue because that's what we think about with mental health. We think psychology. So actually your brain is an organ. The biology, the physiology of it is quite likely contributing to the problem. So here's a plan that you should consider. It all made quite a lot of sense to me once she'd spelled it out. It seems really obvious once someone's explained to you the very obvious point that your brain's an organ. And if it's not getting the nutrients it needs, it starts to send alarm signals. So she's like, your alarm signals were insomnia. For other people, it could be something else entirely. And what happens if that happens to you? Like, it could be anxiety, it could be depression. Like, you can get all of these things from nutrient deficiencies. It can be psychosis. So when you start to not feel yourself, or like chronic fatigue, when any of those things start to happen, you tend to go on a health journey as a human being, right? You've reached a new low where you're like, I can't actually go out in my day-to-day like this. I need to go and figure it out. So you go to the doctor. So you go here. So you go there. And you go on your health discovery journey. And she was annoyed because she's like, the last place people come is a dietitian. It should be the first. Doctors, dietitians are NHS trained the same as doctors, but in food. So they are trained in nutrition for sick people. Nutritionists work with healthy people. Dietitians tend to work more with sick people. So if you go to a doctor with a sickness problem, they should at least, as one of the options, say go to a dietitian, but they kind of don't. They forget. So I went.
They forget, or do you think they're more hardwired to want to recommend?
Well, no, I was being polite. I think that I've got friends who are doctors. It's really tough. GPs get 7 minutes with you on average, and in 7 years of training, they get about 2 hours of nutrition training, full stop. So I think that's all changing because I think the impact of cultural revolutionary books like Ultra Processed People and just the general consumer awareness of how poor our diets are in the UK and how much that contributes to less productivity, worse GDP, like fat people feeling sick and unable to actually change that not because of them, not because they don't want to, but because the system is rigged against us. Like all of this stuff, my dad died like way too young because he was fat. Basically, he just kept getting chronic illnesses and stuff and fundamentally ended up having heart attack after heart attack. I mean, that's the number one killer in the world. Heart attacks or heart conditions, right?
It's a really Western disease as well.
Have
you read the China study?
What, as in they just don't seem to have it at all?
Yeah, so the China study was a study done, forgive me if I quote this incorrectly, but 20,000 people from the US and from China. And it was of rural areas in America and rural areas in China. And they compared the two diets and they compared, the same age group, the same, environmental variables. So they smoked. They had children, They worked certain hours, they worked certain hours. And what they found was in America, heart disease, heart attacks, cancer, etc., like Western diseases were like obscenely higher than they were in China. And what they worked out was it's because in rural China, comparatively to rural America, they don't really eat any processed, actually, anything. The only processed thing they really eat is tofu.
Which is good for you.
Which, is, not good for me. It fucks me up, but that's a completely different, conversation.
Maybe if you were Asian, you'd feel better
high
about
protein, low dairy.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, there's no dairy.
Yeah, so they don't eat dairy, but they would eat like pork and they would eat tofu and they'd eat lots and lots of rice, no wheat. It was a really interesting thing, and the kind of conclusion drawn was, sure, there's other diseases that these people get, but actually the Western diseases are account for 20% of what the mortality is of early deaths.
Totally.
And it was really interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, this is the thing. There's more awareness of this stuff. But I feel like there's no awareness whatsoever that any of it could be contributing to your poor mental health.
Yeah.
There's none.
Well, your serotonin, a lot of it's made in your gut, right?
Right. And so the gut is having a moment. And so the gut awareness, the awareness of microbiome, that's really improving. 70% of your immunity comes from your gut.
Yeah, that's
right?
wild.
So mostly for people who want to just stay healthy and fit, you should actually be taking probiotics and looking after your gut health. Serotonin, to your point, about just under 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut as well.
It's that much, is it?
It's that much. So, and the gut-brain axis communicates everything. That's why you get butterflies in your tummy. That's why, all of these things. And talk
follow
about
your gut as well.
Follow your gut instinct and stuff. What's really interesting about that, for anyone that's ever felt they have an intuition on something, they've taught themselves out of it. Your gut reacts to everything considerably faster than your brain does. So the feelings of things come from your gut and they enter your mind. And then when they enter your mind, you then go through the mental processing and negativity bias that we all have as cognitive bias to talk yourself out of the thing. So your gut says X. Most people don't listen to that and don't follow their intuition. And then they sit and they ruminate for ages. They go through analysis paralysis and they talk themselves out of the thing that actually was potentially a good idea. So the more that science demonstrates, I mean, these are facts, by the way, that's not like my opinion. The more that we can sort of pay attention to what our gut has said and then times we've talked ourselves out of it. It's almost like if we could keep track of these things and figured out the times when we actually then listened to our mind and went a different way to our gut and it didn't work out well to us, you'd build up more confidence of just listening to your gut. But the intuition stuff, I mean, it's all ancient and completely being proven by like modern imagery scans. It's so interesting.
Do you know what's really interesting? I would say historically I have never followed my gut. Like you get like you said, you described like butterflies and like even when you're dating people, right, you get the butterflies and or the anxiety and or like the whatever of that manifestation you get. I feel like we are trained, societally or whatever, to not listen to that and like to process things with your head.
Definitely.
And actually I've become, I would say, a better friend, a better mother, a better leader, all of those things in the last 6 months because I've went through this journey of I need to start listening to my gut more and following what my gut says. And if my gut says this isn't right, don't question it. Like ask questions after, but like listen to what my body's telling me. And that's made a huge difference to my mental health. I think I'm the happiest now that I've ever been in my entire adult life. And I don't say that with like, a lack of conviction. Like I genuinely, the last couple of years have been a real fucking roller coaster.
What, and all because you've been listening to your gut more? Or?
Yeah, like even little things about food. So I came across Davinia Taylor, who I'm sure you're aware of, who used to be an it girl. Now she's like, a very well-known, I don't know what you call her, like nutritional warrior, I guess. Yeah, biohacker is probably the best way to describe her. And she's very anti ultra processed, anti, eating things that have not come almost directly from animal or farm. And I came across her when I was on holiday recently. I met a couple and we started talking. Our kids were the same age and they were playing or whatever. And the wife was saying, I used to have all these like insomnia and like I couldn't concentrate on work and all this kind of stuff, and I discovered this woman, Davinia Taylor, and she sort of passed this knowledge on to me, and I was like, oh, interesting. So I started kind of researching her and reading about her and bought some of the products that she sells for Will Powders, which is her brand. And within, I would say, about 3 weeks of following the like program or whatever it was that she kind of set out, which is like collagen, certain supplements, avoiding this, that, and the other thing. If you're going to eat wheat, eat sourdough, whatever. The difference I had to my brain fog, which I didn't even realize I had until I didn't have it. The difference I had to my sleep quality as well. Like I don't sleep a lot. I probably sleep like 5-6 hours a night, but the quality was like 46%, 45%. Now it's like 90. So it's the same amount of sleep, but I'm getting such a deeper sleep, and it's been quite life-changing actually. Quite life-changing.
It's funny though, because you say these things and you have these epiphanies, and then you realize in the post-rationalization period, it's really obvious.
Yeah.
It is just really obvious. So if you think about the thing that you do more than anything else, it's eating for most people, right? You're going to do it 2-3 times a day, maybe more.
Whole life revolves around food.
Right. And if what you're putting into your body is actually not that good for you. But the problem is we don't know that it's not good for us. That's the thing that sort of changed.
Until you look at the labels.
Have you looked at the labels
in America?
Well, that's the thing. If you turn around any normal thing that you'd be buying and there's 20 ingredients on there, you know it's junk. But you don't know it's junk. And there's a great line in ultra-processed people that's if anything has a health claim on it, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
When's the last time an apple had a health claim on it? Does a steak have a health claim on it? You ever seen a health claim on vegetables? So like whole food, things that are good for you, they don't need health claims. They don't have them. So as soon as one's on there, run for your life. And it's like, or just eat it and be consciously aware that it's not, and that's the thing. Like learning about this stuff was really, really interesting for me, and I absolutely loved it. And I felt like there was a big gap in the education space between mental health and gut health information, and sort of translating that out of science and out of like the medical area and into layman's terms for people basically as thick as you and me. And so I was like, I'm going to start a newsletter. because I don't like, I wasn't on social media much at that time. So I was kind of allergic to influencers and that kind of vibe. And I was like, well, who do I respect? I don't respect them. I do respect scientists and medical professionals. I'm going to read PubMed, which is short for Public Medical Journal. Terrible name, it just sounds like a boozer.
PubMed, yes,
and all doctors are obviously drunk all the time as well, so it doesn't even help. But, I'm going to read PubMed every single week, and I'm going to look for scientific studies that talk about the impact of nutrition on your mental health and your gut health. Gut health is a lot more obvious, as in, it's easy logic to anyone that what you eat will impact your gut health, right? That's common, but that it would impact your mental health and that those two things are interlinked is pretty rare. And so I was like, that's a really interesting space for me. I'm going to start writing a newsletter about it. So in 2018, I just started writing a newsletter. My mum signed up, and then a week later, like 5 more people signed up. And then, over a period of time, over the year, I was writing this newsletter. And I was tagging these really amazing, so I was sharing it on Twitter.
Is this before you founded the business, or is this?
This is like kind of the start of the business.
Right.
Like I called it Dawn because I didn't have a better name. And then I went to America to do some market research on like what we should do with my business partner. And then like day one out there, we're staying in like an Airbnb, and like their version of Fairy Liquid is called Dawn. And I was like, well, I guess we won't be getting that trademark. So I was like, okay, we're going to have to change the name. And then we went through a process where we came to Heights, which pretty much was a case of like, what trademarks could we possibly get with a cool name? But we were writing this newsletter as Dawn for a year. And then we switched it to Heights, and then we launched the product in January 2020, having built a newsletter audience up to 45,000 people organically over the course of, I'd say, 16, 17 months. So like up until that point, all I'd been doing is writing this newsletter. I'd been tagging, like I said, I've been tagging really impressive people into it, and I had lots of really respectable scientific professionals reading it and enjoying it, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, you're right, this is a problem. It is a problem that there's the science, it's really interesting, but no one's making it like clear and easy to understand in like a simple digest. So my whole thing was like, had lots of like witty taglines, but one of them was like, don't waste time with science, I'll do that for you. Everything you need to know about nutrition and your brain, or everything you need to know about nutrition and your gut this week in under 3 minutes in your inbox on Sunday. So it's a really light read, but always link back to the science paper. And so my process was awesome as well, because it's like, I have really bad imposter syndrome when I go into a new category, but as an entrepreneur, I always do that. Every single new thing I've ever started has been a completely different category to the last. So I'll never achieve mastery in anything, because I'd rather start from bottom and be a complete student again. Like I much prefer that process, but I do get imposter syndrome with it. And in science, I was a bit like, right, I don't have any degree in science. I'm not PhD. I'm no one, right? And I already don't trust those people, so I shouldn't be trying to pretend something I'm not, right? However, I was like, if all I do is read a science paper and recommunicate it, actually I'm a communicator. And that's okay. People don't mind that, so long as what I'm saying isn't my opinion. It just comes from a science paper that I've linked to. So that process really worked, and it helped me bring on board brilliant people. So the first person we ever worked with was Dr. Tara Swart, who's like now a world famous neuroscientist. She was pretty famous. She had a book, and I was quoting her in my newsletters and stuff. But we met up in Soho, and she was like, I love the newsletter, I read it every week, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I love your work, I think it's amazing. I did like a whole newsletter on one of her books. And she started telling me about what she gives her clients. And it was like this concoction of supplements. And I was like, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. So I learned she has a PhD in neuropharmacology, which is basically what nutrients your brain needs as a PhD. And we got talking about what that could be in a product. And if she was going to put her name on a product as chief science officer, what would it need to be? If we promised to take no corners, like everything. So we ended up with this exceptionally unique looking product, right? Where the omega-3s on the outside, the vitamins inside it, like that's a patented capsule that had been tested to the nth degree, because she was like, it would need to have fat in it. And you always have to take your omegas separately. And is there a way of getting them together? Because if you could, they'd be more bioavailable, get into your bloodstream faster. You wouldn't have to, you could have them on a fasted stomach, all of this stuff. Yeah, she was like, that'd be the ideal. So we were like, gosh, what a diva, it's a long list of bloody requirements here, but okay.
Try and make it work.
Exactly. And actually, funny enough, we started working with a lady called Sophie Medlin, who's like really well known now as she's been a gut health dietitian for 15 years. So saying she's famous sounds a bit harsh, but she was basically, there's a Channel 4 show called Know Your Shit, and she was the main dietitian on that. So she was like the leading gut health dietitian researcher on that. And she's the head of nutrition. But at the time, I did exactly the same thing with a probiotic. So we want to launch a probiotic. We thought we were going to launch them together. That probiotic took 3 years to bring to market.
I remember when we first met, you gave me some.
Yeah.
And it was before you'd launched it.
Oh, was it?
Great,
yeah. So that's the thing.
Very pro-probiotic.
That product took 3 years to bring to market. And the reason is because Sophie was like the number one, the difference between vitamins need to get in your bloodstream. A probiotic has to make it all the way through to your colon. And to do that, it's got to get through your large intestine, small intestine, super acidic. Yeah, exactly. So the process there was actually creating an acid-resistant capsule and being able to prove it in what's called in vivo labs and in vitro labs, which means in human and in lab studies, that more of the bacteria that we were bringing in got to your colon alive than any other product. And Sophie was basically like, we agreed that you wouldn't bring out a product with my name on it unless we could prove that. So that one took 3 years because the amount of times we tried to bring it out and we couldn't prove it meant that we couldn't bring it out. So it's actually awesome. Like, you know, I often say like the 3 things we did at the start that made it really hard for us, but actually long-term incredible brand moats. One, we're a B Corp from day one. That like helped set a map of all the, you know, ethical choices that you make and everything else, diversity, hiring and what you pay people and the factories that you use and all of the things without having to figure it all out yourself and working with Sophie and working with Tara. Because every single one of those decisions made our life immediately harder and made us have to be a lot more patient. But long term, like years later, that's actually kind of the thing that's really helping us grow now is like we haven't cut any corners. And so, you know, medical professionals recommend our product. We just signed up, you know, our first professional sports team, the Ireland men's rugby team.
Amazing.
Like we're actually working like really closely now with the UK Sports Institute, who look after like all the nutrition programs for the F1, football, rugby, cricket, tennis. It all goes through UK Sport Institute. And so we're now getting to that point where we have enough data and research and evidence that when we have conversations with them about probiotics, for example, they're like, yeah, you have the most evidence of, so, you know, we're now using all that stuff to like break down doors we couldn't get elsewhere, but they take years.
Did you start the newsletter with the intention of building a business off the back of it?
Yes, but I didn't know what business.
Right.
So for a while, I thought that business was going to be basically a meal delivery business. So I was trying to cook. The thing is, I'm a rubbish cook. I finally learned how to cook via basically Gusto, like every single week, just honing things. But unless it comes with like big instructions for
That's
like
a
proper man toddler, then sadly, you know, it doesn't really work. So my wife is like really creative in the kitchen, and I'm just like, I need to know exactly how much of the thing I need. I need to know how many times I need to stir it. So, you know, I tried that. I thought it'd be really, really, really cool as a business to do food that's great for your brain and gut. I actually think that business would have flopped massively because I don't think consumer awareness is there. And actually the main problems and challenges in this space anyway are always money and time. So that stuff would have been really expensive. Like you need 25 blueberries every day just for your brain health, for example.
Yeah.
25 blueberries is about £5. Cause I know because it's the only thing I don't compromise on. I get my 25 blueberries every day. There's 25 blueberries in Vitals, like our launch product from Heights, in the form of anthocyanins, which is the blueberry powder essentially, which is an antioxidant. And it's amazing for your brain. You should do both, but at least get 25 blueberries in. But imagine doing that on a daily basis in a meal. You know, it just would have been ridiculous. So I was trying a few of those things, wasn't happening. And actually, it was really interesting. We went and did customer research. So we did 200 customer interviews with high performers. So high performers that we called like basically knowledge workers. We went to meet, there's sort of unusual people, but we went to meet accountants, lawyers, journalists and traders, like stock traders. And the reason we chose them was like they're basically mathletes, right? They're people who their work is quite binary on the outcome. They have to be well researched. They have to be right. They're paid fortunes to be right. They're not like entrepreneurs who'll just like bluff their way through.
Just fucking see how it goes.
Right. They're like, you know, it's not a test and fail thing. It's like work for 3 months, be really right about something and get a massive check for being right and doing the work. So we're like, those people really have to be on it with their brains. So we're like, we want to learn about their behaviors, what they do, etc. And we were amazed to see so many of them use supplements, but they all had the same problem, which is they got out of the habit. So people would show us their like supplement drawer or their cupboard with like things that they just started taking and they never continued. And because we'd worked in mobile tech before, we'd built a mobile company. The number one rule in a mobile company is you need daily active users and monthly active users. And the only way to get them is to understand how people build habits. So in the physical product manifestation space, the only way to work that out was a unique bottle design. So we're like, if we do a bottle that's completely different to everyone else, quite possibly, people will remember to take the product because they'll keep it out. It will look different enough that they don't hide it away with all the other ones. And we did that bottle design process through our newsletter as well. Newsletter has always been, here's all the information, and then the sign-off is something personal from me. Maybe I want to ask you a question. Maybe I'm talking about what I did this week, like whatever it is. But it's always been, not disjointed from the main body, but like a more personal touch. And so we would always get feedback from people in our newsletter community, essentially. This is what we're thinking, this is what we're doing. So when we did the bottle design stuff, we just kept saying, which one of these designs do you think you'd keep out? And, who wants to get the first versions of these bottle designs? And this is what we're thinking. So it's always been really good to have an audience that we're building feedback with. And when we launched in January, so January 2020, we got really lucky because actually this was really interesting. It took us 3 weeks, we launched and said, this is, our amazing product, finally here, etc. A few sales, nothing big. And I was like, oh my God, I thought building a newsletter audience would be the one. And I did it again, maybe a week later, not that many sales. And I was like, what's going on? So I asked a few of my friends who had received the newsletter, read pretty much every week and hadn't bought. What is going on? Why aren't you? And they're like, you're almost embarrassed. You're being very subtle. You're kind of doing the main newsletter you've launched and you're talking about it. And then there's a little bit here. You should just channel your inner American and just do a newsletter that's purely selling what you've done, what's in it, why I should care, and just go for it. And I was like, oh God, ick. But I did it. And then we did £30,000 of sales.
Amazing.
Of one newsletter. So I was like, right, okay, that's what you got to do. You've got to not be too ashamed to sell what you do.
Yeah.
We don't do that very much still in a newsletter form, but it's trying to find that right balance. So it was really, really interesting learning there as well. I always thought if you build enough of a fan base,
they'll buy it.
Yeah. And as long as you're charming and subtle about it. But no, actually still, regardless of the depth of engagement from people, they still need to be told to buy stuff and encouraged.
Need to be reminded to.
And reminded.
I think, who does that really, really well? I think Grace Beverly does that really, really well. She's got a...
Slightly different. Grace Beverly is a walking QVC.
Yes, I agree.
And so the distinction I would give completely is from day one, Grace Beverly and Stephen Bartlett, and they could sell ice to Eskimos because they've always done it. And by always doing it, it's totally their absolute authentic brand. And I always use those both as examples, and they're both customers, right? And so I know them both really well. Grace is actually an investor in us, and I'm an investor in Tala, so I know them both pretty well. But they're so good at selling, and no one would ever get annoyed with them for selling.
But I would argue also, though, they are both very good at selling, but the amount of content that Grace gives that is interesting and engaging and mirroring exactly what her audience is. When she comes and goes, I've got new samples, guys, go buy it. They go, yeah, sure, no problem.
Totally.
But she's unapologetic with asking people to buy what she's selling. And so is Stephen.
Yep.
And I think we've probably been guilty of that in the past, of being too subtle and then being like, well, why has no one bought?
She gets it.
Yeah.
She does it 100% right.
And it's like a pattern as well. It's like give, ask, give, ask, give, ask. And I think that is the best marketing strategy for anything, whether it be an individual or a brand. You need to remind people to buy. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, and she's absolute master of it.
Yeah.
And I actually think she's probably better than Stephen, arguably, at it. I just think that she's got it down and understands her audience. And also women buy things more than men do as well, and they're far more likely to be influenced by someone they respect, etc. Whereas men will still take, a bit of time and consideration and ask around, which is not that impulsive about things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's a master. She did so much content for us for a while, and it works. She works.
So for anyone that's looking for an influencer.
Yeah, and she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing.
So 2018, the business is founded. 2020, you launch the product.
Yeah.
It's been, I imagine, a bit of a journey between now and then. You've gone through a pandemic. You scaled really, fast and had a bit of a drop off. So talk me through, you said at the beginning, you love starting businesses and learning from the ground up and kind of the trials and tribulations of that. And I can totally relate to that. It's a game, really. It's like the game of building something. What happened after January 2020, where you started building, you started making a name for yourself? Was it all like, was that year easy for you, or was it harder based on what was happening in the world?
It was a bit of a mix. We got two massive strokes of luck. The first is that Stephen Fry was our first customer.
Love.
And so, and
he's a legend.
He's a legend, and he's still our customer on both products. And he is so nice. And he has a whole thing, which is like, I can't officially endorse your product like in advertising because I'm chairman of Mind.
Yeah.
But his quotes and testimonials and all that kind of stuff of my actual experience, and you can use them as much or whatever you want, license free. And every so often, one of his agents, he has many, will get in touch with us to be like, you know, we've seen this, you can't use this, you've got to take it down. And every time I do, I send it to him on email, and he's like, within 10 minutes, the agency usually comes back and being like, okay, sorry, yeah, you can, don't worry about it. He's so nice. It's happened a lot. And he's always like, give me 2 minutes. He's also, by the way, because he's so quick and so intelligent, he's also the fastest emailer back ever. You send enter, and he's responded to you. Like the moment you take your finger off the thing, you're like, wow. And in the pandemic, you know, because he loved the product. So we got really lucky that he actually, because when you send products to people, like he was on our list of people. And by luck, you know, one of our investors was the founder of WeTransfer, and he just knew Stephen. So he's like, I reckon Stephen Fry would love this. Do you want to send it to him? We're like, obviously, yes, that'd be amazing. But you send these things to people when they just end up in the dust, right?
Yeah.
Like they just don't even open them. So you don't know what's going to happen. And he did. And he emailed us to tell us how much he loved the product and all of this kind of stuff. So, you know, we got really lucky that he even went out of his way to find my email address from our mutual friend, get in touch to actually give us a testimonial, all of these things. Like that's the level of how nice he is. And then during the pandemic, he was like, you know, how can I help? And we're like, we'd love to do content with you, interviews, all this kind of stuff. He's like, no problem. You know, did Zooms. We did like a live together. We had 20,000 people watching that live.
Amazing.
You know, it was a lot of pressure. It was 3 hours. I did like an interview with him, and it was very intense.
I imagine fun though. 3 hours.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing, but very intense.
Yeah.
And he's such a nice guy. So look, that's a big stroke of luck, because actually what I would say is all the scientific research in the world is nice, but actually, you know, the people who ask for scientific evidence on websites are the negs who are never going to buy even if you show them the evidence. That's what I've learned. I used to think it was people like me who actually, if I saw it, I'd be compelled to buy. Actually, it's people who've already made their mind up that no matter what you show them, they're not going to purchase. They're just trolls. And so that like hasn't helped. Having Stephen Fry's testimonial helped massively. So I think, you know, that's not necessarily a positive commentary on society, but we certainly noticed that that was true. So if you can get highly credible, authentic stories and authentic people, it made a big difference. And then the other thing that happened was, you know, Stephen Bartlett became a really early customer and then invited me on his show. I was the first ever video interview on Direct
I remember,
CEO.
that's how I came across you.
Yeah. So like I was the first one, which actually is quite lucky because I didn't know this about YouTube, but apparently like normal YouTube behavior is you go to like oldest first if you're really into a channel. So like I'm first. So get a nice little big bump on that. And that really helped, right? And he was a massive Heights fan, and he let us use his content like free, license free and stuff on social for a while. So that first year we got really lucky. But behind the scenes, you know, we were planning to build a team in-house. We had an office in Soho. The pandemic happened. We had to learn how to build a remote company instead whilst paying for an office in Soho, which was really painful. So we had our challenges, but it went well. And towards the end of the year, we did a crowdfunding, and that did really well. We broke a record, raised £1 million in 10 minutes. Like we just did really, really well. And from them, we had some good growth. Last year, we struggled. So it hasn't always been up and up. We basically had to let go of half of our team. And that was really, really, really tough. But we grew a bit too fast and thought that growth was going to carry on, and it just plateaued. So we hired a whole bunch of heavy hitters and all this kind of stuff, and then we just plateaued. And we were just burning money, and we sort of decided that the market has changed massively. And we decided we don't want to just be reliant on funding from externals all the time. We actually want to like grow and build a profitable business and become like independent, like capable of just standing on our own 2 feet. So we had to basically change everything we did, basically fired half the team. It was really horrific. And then for 6 months, I'd say, so for about 3 months, it was kind of wobbly. And then we had this like junior team left and stuff, and everyone just stepped up massively, and we did really, really well. So last year, you know, we grew 70% after all of that had happened. We grew 70% and went from massively losing money to profitable. So it was also a really good lesson in, trusting young and inspiring and smart people, and that you don't always need loads of adults, an older experience, etc., to drive that kind of change. And then this year, we had a horrific start to the year. So, which is really annoying because you're a health and wellness.
I think a lot of people have, though.
Health and wellness, though.
Wild market.
January, February, health and wellness, you shouldn't be doing badly, and we did badly. And I share all the stuff on LinkedIn, as you probably see, and so I share all of our revenue figures, and I always have. But we sorted things out, and we've had amazing March, April, May, June. We've got, again, lucky, we've learned about telling stories. So one of our main things we've learned is how to tell great stories through the right partnerships and right ambassadors. So the only problem with our model is we've only ever worked with influencers who are like maniacal on the product, which takes ages. So like the Stephen thing, for example, he was taking that product, Stephen Bartlett, he was taking the product from like January. I went on Diary SEO in September. By September, he was a massive fan. From January, he's like, I don't know if it's working, right? Stephen Fry, he'd had it in our pre-launch. So he'd been on it for 3 months because all of our investors got it 3 months in advance of launching. So we go through this process of like trying to find people we think would be great for it. And sometimes they just never open it. And sometimes it might take 3 or 6 months. So our cycle for finding the right people is really long and really unpredictable. But what we've never done is been like, you're perfect, here's the supplements, get in a video next month, here's the money for it, and just because we just know it doesn't work. Like, I've seen how inauthentic that is. I think that works for tons of companies. Like, who needs the authenticity for a laptop, clothes, whatever? Like, either is your style or it's not. Like, and even if it wasn't quite, you could probably get away with it. But for health, you need someone's actual genuine story to say, this took me from here to there, and ideally, here's the evidence. So that's like what we've been really learning in terms of like how to build storytelling into the business.
I think it's deeper than just health and wellness, though. Like I actually think the influencer as we knew it is really declining. Like the trustworthiness of, if you think back like 5-6 years ago, if someone with 1 million followers posted hypothetically Heights or a different brand, you could almost guarantee that you were going to sell a certain number of products off the back of that post because of the buy-in that the community had with that particular influencer. I think now people don't trust influencers as much as they once did because they know that this stuff is paid for and it isn't actually genuine, authentic. Like, totally. I love this product. And it's funny because I get offered to do brand partnerships all the time. And I've only ever done one. And it was with LinkedIn. And that's because I have grown my business on LinkedIn. Like I'm huge advocate for LinkedIn. I love the platform. And so it felt right. And so I could talk about it from a place
that is right for you.
Yeah. But all the other ones have just been, like you said, here's some money, post about it. And that doesn't feel authentic. And I think that's why when you in that kind of context, why someone like me who does then do a brand deal and goes, actually, this is something you really should, like my audience know that I'm only doing that because I genuinely believe in it, not because I just got paid.
And also they want you to be paid. They want you to be paid.
They love it.
They're actually really happy for you to be paid by the right platform and stuff. I do the same thing. I do very, very, very little of that stuff on my personal brand. The only ones I do, products I'm using anyway. Yeah. And if I'm like authentically using them, I've used them for a year or two, I mean, why not? Happy to be paid a bit to promote them. Like that makes perfect sense to me.
Completely.
But it's impossible really to do that on stuff that you don't know anything about.
Yeah. Particularly with health and wellness stuff. Like you could never comment on the impact that something has on your life if you haven't actually experienced it.
No. And also like you're doing, it's just, it's a funny thing. Like here's actually a really good example. So here's the complete opposite. So Vogue Williams is one of our influencers. I
love her, by the way.
Yeah, she's wicked. And she loves our product. She's so authentic and she's funny. She's really, really authentic. Or as she would say, authentic.
Authentic. She's very authentic.
So
her and Spencer's dynamic is hilarious.
So here's the thing. Like she's been telling Spencer for 2 years to get on Heights products. And he's like, I don't need them. You're a weak woman who needs supplements. I'm like an alpha male. Look at me. Yeah. I don't take supplements. I don't need them. Which in fairness, look at him. I mean, his transformation's unbelievable and he has done some pretty impressive things.
Yeah.
So they always have this kind of banter about it, like how he just won't do it. And, we go to her house and we do filming together and he's there and he's like, you've got her around your little finger, but it's never going to happen with me. Anyway, He is doing this this new challenge called like the Great Desert Challenge or something. And basically the Marathon des Sables is considered like the hardest marathon in the world, hardest event in the world. It's 6 days in a row, a marathon every day in the desert. And he's doing that
People
5
die
times.
every year.
Yeah, 5 times in a row. He's doing 30 days in a row
Wow.
in the Sahara Desert. Ironically, his coach and his endurance dietitian had both told him that unless he takes supplements, he's going to die. And they recommended heights.
Wow.
So really hilarious, like round robin, where he got in touch with me via Vogue and was like, I know what you're thinking. And
I know what I said.
I know what I said, but...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I would love you to sponsor me whilst I do this thing. I am going to have to start taking your products either way. So be really authentic. Like, how do you want to do it? And I was like, to be honest with you, this is a great story. I want the actual story. That's your actual story. You think you don't need heights. You think you're too good for it. You don't need it. And actually, arguably, in most cases, that's true. However, you're doing such an extreme thing that the people around you who are training you have told you that you have to take our product anyway. That's great for our brand. Like, it's extreme. It's not really our niche. We don't really go after like those types of people. However...
The ones that run 30 marathons. In the
Yeah,
desert
well,
in
exactly,
30 days.
right? You'd have a very small market. But at the end of the day, that's your authentic story.
Yeah.
Vogue's authentic story is completely different. Hers is just that she like completely relies on our products and she like took other supplements. She likes taking ours. It's a normal consumer. It's just a typical consumer female who buys like health products.
Yeah.
His is like so completely different, but it's his authentic story. So we're like, yeah, we'd love that. Let's just do that story. It'll be funny. Like, it's a funny story. Let's absolutely just tell that. So I think there's different levels to this, right? But either way, you know, people sort of come out the woodwork with these like interesting, unique stories. And so with Spencer's, it's going to be, yeah, he's taking our product now for the last month and he's doing this next month. So his going to be a bit more like, I was told I'm going to take this, so I'm going to die. So bloody doing it anyway, aren't I? Kind of thing versus like, well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But our whole thing with him the whole time has been like, Ian's like, well, what should I say? Or how should I position him? Like,
However
authentically.
Yeah.
Whatever the actual experience that you have is, do that.
And that's why UGC is so powerful. Like, I always talk about this, how the actual voices of the people who are working with you, for you, buying from you, etc., is the most powerful advocate you can have. So much more powerful than any ad you will ever buy or any tagline you'll ever create. And that's why personal branding, I think, is so powerful, because it's kind of the next level up from UGC. It's like taking people's actual experiences and scaling it.
Totally. And we got lucky as well. Like, we had Matt Willis, who is lovely. And being totally honest, I hadn't heard of Matt Willis. I hadn't heard of Vogue Williams. I didn't spend that.
Busted?
Well, I heard of Busted, but I don't know the individual band members. You know, I don't really know individual band members of any band. But of course, I know Busted. I'm also not a girl. Like, if I was a girl, I'd probably
was like the dream.
Yeah, if I was a girl, I would have fancied Matt Willis back then. Now I've met him. You know, I fancy him now. Right? Like
now he buys heights.
Like a normal, responsible man. But he just sent me a DM on Instagram and was like, basically, I saw one of your ads and I've been taking your product now for 6 months, and I went on tour and I did a big tour. And we're now #1 in the UK and all this stuff. And I felt 20 years younger and I never felt so good. And I was taking 20 supplements and I changed all of them to just take your 2. And I tracked all of this on my health metrics. So I'd like to do some content with you if you're up for it, because I've got a great story for you and the evidence. And we're like, that never happens. It was awesome. So we've done this amazing campaign with Matt. And he's such a legend. He's so nice. But in the authenticity side, he's constantly like, I keep trying to get Emma to take it, and she just can't get into the habit of it. You know, 'cause obviously I'm like, I'd love to get both of you. That would be absolutely like incredible to get both of you like doing ads and stuff. It's like, well, try. But she as a person,
she's the Spencer in the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. She just can't get into the habit. And he's like, I keep trying, but it's not happening. And you're like, well, then there isn't, you know, I'd love to, but it couldn't be an authentic story, right? Until she can.
Yeah, there's something in that about focusing on the yeses and not on the nos. And something I always talk about is like, don't worry about the people that aren't convinced yet.
Yeah.
Worry about the people that are. Because they're the ones that are your customers.
Totally. And so I think that's, you know, that's the hard thing about Growing Heights, actually, is that it's fascinating. I thought, you know, everyone else I know who runs a consumer brand is unbelievable at micro influencers and other things, and terrible at working with macro influencers. And we are the inverse. We're rubbish at working with micro influencers. We don't know why. We can't make it work. It doesn't ever seem to stick. And yet the macro ones do. And I think the high level probable thinking is people don't really believe in supplements. And so you need someone almost to put their reputation on the line where you're like, why would that person even do that unless it was real? You know, Stephen Fry, Stephen Bart, why would they do it? Grace Beverly, why would they do it unless they don't need to do it?
It's also kind of their lifestyle as well. Like if you think about the people that you just mentioned, they're all people who...
Into health.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And visibly into health. Like, you know, Tala, Shreddy, you've got Stephen Bartlett's like entire brand now is about biohacking and like health and stuff. And Stephen Fry has been incredibly vocal.
Yeah, on mental health,
about mental health. Yeah. So that feels really authentic because those people are living that life already. I think that's where a lot of brands go wrong, actually, is they go, that person's of the moment and they've got a really engaged audience. We can kind of find a brand fit there. So let's work with them.
I mean, we've been pushed people non-stop.
Yeah, I bet.
Like non-stop who want to work with the brand. And I'm just like, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a snob, but I'm like, I just don't see it.
But I think that's so fucking important. Like, and I think you should be like that even if you're B2B with your customers. Like if there is not a fit, like how do you expect it to be fruitful?
Yeah, totally.
Like it has to make sense from both sides completely. You mentioned earlier about laying off your staff, and I wanted to touch on this because I know when we first met in person, you just done this.
Oh, had I? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember our old office in Henrietta Street.
Yeah.
You just done this, and then you'd had a session, I think, with your psychologist where you spoke about it on it, and you filmed it and put that out.
Oh yeah, coach. Yeah.
So first of all, how did you even navigate laying off 50% of your staff? Because I know from having a smallish team that can have a massive impact on the people that are left. There's like a guilt. There's also like, are our jobs up for scratch? Like, you know, how did you navigate that? And then secondly, why did you then be so honest and vulnerable and vocal about it online?
Yeah. Those are two very different questions. But the first one I think is I guess starting from the second one back, why? Because I really believe in building in public. And I really believe that the thing that's missing in the entrepreneurship space is the authenticity. Like, how many unbelievable, brilliant, successful founders have you heard like write books and talk about all the hard things after they've happened when they know that it was a happy ending? It's much easier to wrap things in a knot, share your vulnerabilities and everything after you've made your millions or billions, but like it's a happy ending. Totally. The thing that people always comment on why they like my content and why they like me is I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I talk about all the bad things in the moment, and including letting go of staff, including like the first time one of our staff left us to go to a different company because they weren't happy with like X, Y, and Z. And even with her, I asked like, you know, can I share this? Can I share this story of you leaving us? You know, that's embarrassing for us. But at the end of the day, we've just lost one of our best team members to a different company because we were lacking in something. So I'd like to do some content on that, how it makes me feel as a boss, how it makes... and, you know, everyone who works at Heights understands that I do this stuff anyway, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like part of maybe roll the eyes. Yeah, roll the eyes. That's what Dan does.
Team
but
know that too.
it's kind of the thing. So you don't have to work there.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the culture.
Yeah.
And so,
I think there's a lot of power in that, though. Like, I think a lot of people...
I think there is.
It's funny. We have I just spoke to someone recently and they said, we don't want to show the chinks in the armor externally from, like, because we're trying to build their personal brand.
Yeah.
And I said, but why? Because chinks in the armor show that you're real. They show that you're human and they show that you're honest. If you only show perfection, everyone's going to go... Like, is it actually like that? And chances are it's not. I don't know a single business where everything goes right. Yep. And I'm like you, I'm so fucking vocal about when things go wrong. Like, I'll say when I, you know, even little ridiculous, dumb shit, like forgetting to invoice customers and the fact that we had this massive 50 grand hole in our revenue as a result of it, and how I fucked up here and I was a terrible leader last year and blah, 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 blah. Like, all of those things people think will make you look like a bad business and people won't want to do business with you. But actually, they're the things that actually win you rapport and connection with people, because people can see themselves in that content because everyone fucks up.
Definitely. I do think that. One thing I've learned lately, which is fascinating, we're now at a size where it's a lot more challenging. So we're about 10 million now. And actually, I would never have seen this as a problem. And 10 million off 2 products, right? So actually, like, really, really, like impressive penetration on both products. It's like one of the best selling
in that market as well.
The UK. Yeah. And so really proud of that. But actually, the downstream problem now we have, which I was never able to predict, is supply attention. So now when you do a vulnerable post of X, Y, and Z and you try and negotiate new things with suppliers, they can be a bit like withholding stuff because like, oh, but I saw you had this issue with it. And you're like, so that happened to us recently. Like my business partner went to like, because we're now having to order in the like our orders are in the millions of pounds. So it's really, really tight on cash. And so you're kind of trying to get better deals and make things less lumpy and not run out of money. Like this is a very awkward time. People say like between 10 and 20 million is a time when most companies go bankrupt. You either fail right at the start or actually trying to make it from 10 to 20 and not screwing up your cash flow because you're ordering tons of products and you still have to meet the demand and you can't really get anything wrong. We had this recently where I did a post and it was really vulnerable on our terrible January and February, right? And then my business partner went to a big like, supplier event in Geneva. And everyone that he spoke to was like, well, but I saw from your co-founder. And he's like, oh, God.
Fuck's sake, Dan.
Yeah. And like, neither of, usually like we're in control of what those things, it's like investors. And we're like, well, fuck them. They're the wrong investors for us. Or it's like people. And it's like, well, they knew the deal when they got it. So you have these things. But suppliers, especially if you're a B Corp as well, if you're not a B Corp, millions of suppliers you can go to. If you are, there's actually not that many. You need like the highest quality ones and all of these things. So you can't cut corners anywhere, so they kind of have you by the balls. And then you actually like presenting vulnerabilities. Anyway, new lessons. Didn't know that was a thing, but that's been really fascinating.
I mean, good business on their side, being like, let me just shove the knife in a little bit.
I know. Yeah, it was a good lesson.
So going back then to you doing this interview, I know, to build in public, which I'm fully believe that as well. Like, because if it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong anyway. You may as well bring people on the journey. And I think it makes a great anecdote for a dinner party, which is how I live my life. What kind of possessed you in many ways to go, right, I'm going to do this in a video format and push that online? And also, what was the response from your team? Because I think there's a lot of founders that don't do this kind of stuff in public because they, first of all, don't want it to be all about them, which is the perception with building a personal brand. It's all about me. The secondary thing is that they don't want to give too much away to then potentially upset the team or suppliers or customers. So how did that even come about as a concept? And if you haven't seen it, go and watch it.
So are you talking about the coaching episode specifically?
Yeah, and you laid off all the staff.
Yeah. So that was really difficult. I had the world's #1 CEO coach on Secret Leaders. And I thought it'd be a really interesting piece of content to get coached by him and all this stuff. And it was amazing. But, where it went to was this sort of realization of we're going to miss our targets. We're going to have to lay off people, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I felt really inauthentic not to put that out. I did put it out after it had happened. So it wasn't like I did it and surprise. And, there was definitely
surprise, you're losing your job.
Exactly. So there was definitely like a space of time
Tactical.
that needed. Yeah. But look, in reality, it was really difficult, right? Because actually, as you might imagine, people were extra upset about that.
Yeah.
And that was difficult. And, that moments like that, maybe that was actually a bad judgment call, Because
do you think that now?
I do think that now, yeah. Because I think maybe there's things that I'm just such a transparent and open person that I just assume that everyone else can tolerate it, which is interesting because all my business partners, I've got 3 businesses, every single one of them, every single one of my partners is private.
Yeah.
My wife, like barely any social media, like private, like, just it's opposite of me.
Yeah.
So even though I know this to be true in people, I still kind of like forget the tensions.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think, being honest on reflection, I think I shouldn't have done it. But it was hard because he's literally the #1 coach in the world for CEOs. So
and also what an authentic bit of content. And I'd imagine a lot of your audience and of Secret Leaders, but also the people that buy your product are entrepreneurs and are executives, high performers, individuals, etc., and could probably relate quite deeply to the stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah. And we were going through a hard time, right? Like the numbers didn't add up. Like we were spending too much on marketing and we weren't making it back and we were burning money and we didn't want to raise money again in a bad market. So there are only so many things you can do. There's only so many levers that you can pull. And when your staff costs are really high, the only logical thing to do is extend the runway. And, there's always 2 stories to letting people go. Letting half a team go, even if you don't need to let go of half the team, letting half the team go and removing an enormous amount of your costs is the kindest thing to do to safeguard the other half. right?
And the business.
Yeah, I've made this mistake in previous businesses as well. The worst mistakes that I've made are let go of a few people, try and get it a bit better. I didn't quite get that. Now we've got to get let go of a few more people.
Yeah.
Every time you have to do the narrative to your team that's left, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah.
People want to hear this isn't going to happen again.
Yeah.
And you want to authentically look in someone's eyes and say, this isn't going to happen again. We've done one really hard cut so that we can pull together as a team and turn this around and make it better. That's something that we did really well at Heights. Like, we cut half the team. We have not let anyone else go since. Like, that was 18 months ago. We've only hired back since, right? So no one has been let go of since because everyone did a really good job. And I feel really proud of that. Like, that authentic message that we're only doing this once and you are safe as long as we perform was true. So we made a promise. They made a promise, which is that they would perform. And together we got out of this and we've grown again. And I think that's great because in the past, like I say, I betrayed that promise because I wasn't sure it was true. And when things didn't get better, you have to do more and more cuts. And I always give this advice to entrepreneurs now, by the way. Even very successful, more impressive ones than me who are further on in the journey make this mistake often. 3 or 4 people here, see how it goes, 3 or 4 people there. The whole team loses confidence at that point. It's just quite a traumatic thing to do. So if you're going to create trauma in the team, you need to create trauma once and deal with the trauma once.
I think there's something in that as well of like this mutual agreement between staff and employees. Because like you said, there is 2 sides of that story, right? The
performance.
Yes, it's a contractual agreement. And I said this at the NatWest business show. I've done a post before about how you shouldn't call your team your family because your family is a non-conditional relationship, whereas in theory, and your team is a conditional relationship.
Although I did fire most of my family, so I can call them that if I want to.
It's conditional on you performing for me as my employee, but it's also conditional on me being a good employer to you in order for you to get out of the relationship what you want to get out of. And I just fucking hate this concept that like it's lopsided. And I think employers always get the hard end of the stick, of course, because they are the minority.
Well, also, if you want to go viral on LinkedIn or anything, then like virtue signaling to the masses being employees.
Yeah.
That's who the majority of people are on LinkedIn and on any social platform. So if you're going to do posts that like, it's the same with voting in politics, right? Like actually most of the things that are toxically bad for society, generally speaking, are not what populists say.
Yeah.
Like on a fundamental level, there's a big mismatch for what might be good for society and what people will actually do.
Yeah.
Like taxing the rich is a perfect example. Taxing the rich is the easiest manifesto for Labour ever because everyone who isn't rich wants the rich to be taxed more, to pay for their things, to even out society. It isn't what happens. Rich people leave the UK.
Yeah.
Rich people, on average, earn 5 times more than poor people in the UK, or lower taxpayers versus higher taxpayers, and they pay 10 times more tax.
Yeah.
So they literally pay for 4 extra low-income people in the UK to have their services, to have everything that they need. And without rich people, poorer people are literally unable to get the services in the UK. But if you explain all of this, it isn't popular. So tax the rich is what happens. And if you tax the rich too much, they just go to other countries.
They just fuck off.
Yeah.
They stay for 90 days a year and don't have to pay
so
tax at all.
It doesn't create a more equal society. What creates an equal society is reasonable taxes on the wealthy that they can stomach, that they're happy to do because they want to contribute to the country that they live in. If you make it really unfair on them, there's many other places they can go.
And we'll welcome them as well.
Exactly.
They want the money.
Yeah, exactly, because they want their innovation.
Yeah.
So this is it's a perfect example, right? And so the same thing with employees, employers. There is a contract, and employer's job is to create a great working environment, to pay fairly, and then to say, this is what we've signed up for. This is what we need to do. And I know so many stories of people who have left companies, been the bad employee, and then can just shit on their boss as much as they like on LinkedIn, get thousands of likes. One of my friends had got written about really bad. He's probably the nicest, most respected, and doing the most meaningful social impact business of any friend I know. Had a massive hit piece from hiring a homeless person and taking him up through the company. And this person had a bad mental health problem and basically just became an informant and tried to like shit on the company. They got bad press. It's really impacted their business, even though they're a social impact company that's doing incredible work. It's a perfect example. It's like hearsay that one person can destroy a CEO and a company, and it doesn't even need to necessarily be true. So that is the sort of mismatch that can happen. But fundamentally, you know, woe is me, lonely at the top, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
frankly,
what do you do? Whack on a smile and carry on for the next day.
exactly.
You've got
And
bigger
entrepreneurs
problems to
talk
worry
about resilience a lot, right? So it's another opportunity to just demonstrate that.
I mean, there is nothing quite like it. There is nothing quite like it. Like, it is brutal, particularly when you are building in public, because you do open yourself up to so much criticism, and not just criticism from people that don't know you, but criticism from people that do know you as well.
And it's not happened to me yet from anyone I've ever worked with, but doesn't mean it won't.
Yeah.
You know, if I carry on like this, it's likely that it will, right? Because I'm very open and vocal about this stuff, and it will rub someone up the wrong way, regardless at one point. So far, no battle scars like that. I'm fully expecting it at some point.
Did you get any backlash from the coaching session you did?
Yeah, from other people as well, but also like from my team.
Yeah.
And from my co-founder, right? Like, you know, all of it. Like, it was a difficult thing to do.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, terrible. Yeah, really terrible. Like, it was a miscalculation, right? Like, I talked about it in advance a little bit, but I think the thing is, it's just a very difficult thing to do. Like, it's hard enough on its own. And the other thing that was difficult was actually the way that we'd handled the layoffs was really good. We spent a lot of time planning and investing in the comms of it. And then also helping people get on lists, finding other jobs, introducing them to other founders. Like, we'd had like a whole process. Because these weren't people who we were letting go who weren't good. It just wasn't working, and we were spending too much. So we'd already pre-contacted other CEOs who were hiring and being like, you know, and all of them, some of them got jobs that we recommended them for, and they're still in them, right? So that side of it, we'd actually handled really carefully, consciously, thoughtfully, and they really appreciated that. So this was more sort of just like, you know, a negative slant to something, when I'd actually spent a lot of time doing the positive stuff behind closed doors that I wasn't publicizing. You know, that stuff, if I'd have publicized it, would have been virtue signaling. Because the reason you're getting other people new jobs is to be a good boss.
Dan Price vibes.
Yeah, it's to be a good boss. It's not so that you can create a LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
And so it was a shame, because it kind of just ruined the actual intention behind stuff.
I remember you telling me about all the offboarding stuff you did, and it was pretty incredible. Like, I think you did like coaching and stuff for people, didn't you? Like, help them with their resumes and.
Yeah, we think about this stuff a lot, because we'd had to do it before. I've had to shut a company down, and so when I had to let go of everyone because we're shutting a company down, we spent 2 months doing that. And that was like an ethical thing to both of us. We were like,
it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, as this has happened, how can we sleep at night and feel the best about our efforts with it if we can? And so every single person in the company, we tried to help get new jobs. And so, like, I guess the point is, we'd already done this once before. Now this was like half the company, not the whole company, but we had a sort of playbook on how we would do this well.
I want to change tact completely and kind of go down a rabbit hole a little bit. What are some of the things that you do as a founder, outside from taking heights, obviously, that keep you on the top of your game? Like, what you've started and built a number of companies to date, and I have no doubt will go on and do many, many more. So there must be some habits that you've picked up along the way, and some things that you've done that you think, yeah, like that's made a massive difference. Yep.
So every single day I go for a walk, try and aim for 10,000 steps. I'm pretty religious on that. Rain or shine, get out.
I've seen your Instagram stories.
Yeah, I'm basically a walk fluencer. It's all I basically, it's all I post, really. Because I'm trying to think, like, you know, what are the things? Oh, supplements, too obvious. You know, inspiring quotes. Oh, yeah, but, you know, other people can do a lot of that. Walking? No monopoly on walking. So yeah, most of my stuff is walking, which is amazing, because I get feedback from people all the time being like, I actually went for my walk today because I saw your story. And I've got nothing to do on a walk other than post a story anyway, so it all just kind of like fits in with my life. So that's one thing. I go to the gym sort of 4 or 5 times a week. It's gone up. So I've learned a lot about habits and building habits. And so, you know, I started 1 or 2 times a week. Last year I was doing 3 times a week. This year I've got up to about 5 times a week. So that's like two 1-hour sessions on a Peloton, so that's just at home and it's easy, and then sort of 2-3 times a week in the gym. So that's just making sure I'm getting a variety of things. I cook every day. So me or my wife will cook fresh every single day. Gusto, because, you know, I'm average, but still.
No shit on Gusto. We like Gusto.
I love Gusto. I think it's incredible.
It takes the brain work out of it.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, eating well makes a difference. I don't have a baby now. I have a toddler. She finally sleeps, so I do get my proper sleep. I try to be in bed by 10 or 11, so 7-8 hours of sleep. AKA much better than you. 7?
Wow.
Yeah. Everyone thinks I'm like up at 5 or whatever.
No, like 7's like late.
Yeah.
For me, like for me, like comparative, like I it's funny because when we first started talking on this podcast, you said you had insomnia. I have really bad insomnia as well, and when I was at secondary school, I used to average about 2 or 3 hours a night, broken.
Yeah, it's
and like I lived like that until I was about 28, 29, I think. And it wasn't until I started doing all of the kind of like learning about like, you know, patterns and habits and whatever. So I put myself to sleep like a toddler. I have a shower, I have a story, and then I go to bed.
Oh, really?
And like that pattern really, really helps me get sleep, but I don't need as much as you. And I think that's the thing is like you need to get 8 hours of sleep is bullshit. You need to work out just what works for you and then
totally.
go for that.
Yeah, you do need to work out what's right for you, and you'll know from your own energy levels the next day what's right for you.
Yeah.
And, like absolutely. I think one other thing I do genuinely that makes a massive difference is I have very good social health.
Yeah.
Like I don't, during the week I'm home with my daughter. I do every bedtime and bath time. That's like sacrosanct to me. So like I very rarely, like a couple of things this week that I have to be out for. But most things I get invited out for during the week, I just say no. But like one of the weekend days, or like this weekend I went away for a weekend, I will do something and it will be social and I will see people and I will make sure that I'm like present and off my phone and just enjoying my friends. And I think that's a big thing that people forget. And
have fun.
Yeah. And I am like big on fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to Glastonbury in 2 weeks. I'm going to Burning Man in a few months. Like, I do have my fun. And
those are going to be very fun.
Those will be very fun. I was just away with 65 founders over the weekend with my wife as well. But like, we were having lots of fun all weekend. I make sure that life is really fun. I very much believe in, you only have one life and, no one's ever getting any younger.
Work
so
to
just
live.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I don't even believe in like work-life balance. It's just life. So just make sure that you're having fun with your life and figure out the things around it. And I'm very lucky that I like my work. So that also generally feels like play to me.
Yeah.
So that stuff all works really nicely for me. And then the other thing I'd say is, I am quite good at making sure I'm doing some kind of contributing to other people. I do set aside time every single week to, I do OKRs with my wife. So like that. Literally relationship OKRs.
I remember you telling me this. You guys go and have a strategy session once a year.
Yeah. We do like proper relationship OKRs.
Off-site.
Yep.
What are our goals for this year? I love it.
Yeah. Do like proper time together, like, get some babysitting for our daughter and actually just go away for 2 days and actually plan out our year, the things we want to do together, how we want to improve together. And part of that is contribution. So one of our OKRs every single week is, who did you help? And I'd love to be amazing enough to not need to tick a box to remember, but you get busy. So knowing that you have that forcing function of having to talk to the other person and say, oh God, I forgot again this week. Anyway, stuff like that does actually help. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Sometimes it could just be like calling up a friend and seeing if they need help. And sometimes it's one of the zillion LinkedIn messages or Twitter messages you get and being like, why not? Yeah. I'll just do a call. So it's a bit random, but although one of my good hacks, by the way, on this is so many people, if you're an entrepreneur, so many people are like, can I send you my deck? Can I chat to you, etc. 99% of those people have given up after a month. Like the biggest problem with entrepreneurship is wantrepreneur. Like so many people love the idea of it, but don't actually have the thick skin or resilience to do it. I've heard them no a billion times. Helps being a bloke because you had to go through dating and, that whole process. Apparently that's one of the biggest problems in dating nowadays is women don't get chatted up anymore.
No, they don't.
Men are like terrified to approach them for getting cancelled on TikTok. And
it's wild.
Yeah. In fairness, wild. I mean, women do cancel men on TikTok
but this is my point, right? Yeah. Women complain that there are no good men anymore, but are you surprised?
Yeah, they're like terrified.
Like they take videos in the gym of men looking at them in a bra and then complain about it. Like
totally. I'm so glad it's not my problem. But
that's
a
you problem.
Yeah. I had to go through the whole like going up to a girl and then being like, no, you're creepy, and like, what, just for starting. Yeah, I heard a stat that 80% of women
Mm-hmm.
want to get approached by men, but find 70% of them find the approach creepy.
Yeah, but
so how do you win?
This is the only. I'm convinced the only difference between, obviously this is a very blanket statement.
Yeah.
But the only difference between a creepy approach and an approach from someone who you're like, oh yeah, I vibe with, is whether or not you find that person attractive.
Yeah.
And I don't think women.
But given most men are ugly and most women are not, how the hell are you going to win?
But
like,
I don't think women will
fair.
ever understand what it feels like to be rejected by a woman, because women don't typically get rejected.
No, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important. It has been for me anyway. Like whenever I've been approached, even if I'm not interested, just be fucking nice. Just be a nice person. You don't have to be like, ooh, go away. You can just be like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to. Nothing is that outrageous.
And when they say why, you go, because I find your approach creepy.
Because I find you very unattractive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but now
just
you know.
be a nice
It's
person.
feedback.
Just be a nice
but yeah,
person.
I mean, look, to that point, so, I had lots of rejection, and most entrepreneurs don't do well with rejection, and the good ones do. They just keep going and find a path. And so one of the best tactics I found on LinkedIn or any of these places where people ask you constantly or whatever is, I'm like, look, I'm too busy, but come back to me in a month.
Yeah.
Almost no one comes back in a month.
Because they forget.
It's or they forget, or they're just not doing that business anymore.
Yeah.
So you haven't wasted your time. You haven't wasted their time. No time has been wasted. Nature has taken its course. And the ones who do are generally the ones. Yeah, exactly. But it sounds mean, but actually it's true. It's just how it is. Like, I don't have a lot of patience for people who just want lots of time from other people, but not really willing to put in the work themselves. It's bloody hard. Entrepreneurship is bloody hard. Like, it's a brutal path. People aren't very nice. No one believes you that you can do any of the things you're going to do. You have to find a way to prove that wrong. So if you
on your own as well.
On your own. So if you haven't lasted the month to then remember to pitch that person, or the things like, not still there or not progressing, you've self-selected out of that path anyway.
There's a sales tactic in that. If people say, come back to me a month, go fucking back to them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you'd be amazed. Like, how many of the great sales stories have you ever heard are just from like pure persistence?
Relentless.
Yeah. And people, like some of the biggest deals in history, are being like, no, not interested. And then I flew out to that person, and I did turn up there, and a lot of it's just showing up.
Tim Ferriss as well. I've just started reading the 4-Hour Work Week, which is, I don't know how I've only just started reading this, but
Christ, you're gonna not fancy your work after that. The job is to read 4-Hour Work Week before you start work. Try it and realize you're not Tim Ferriss. I can't handle that. Not to be like, I'm already really busy, I'm going to read 4-Hour Work Week, and suddenly be like, that sounds good. I'm going to try that.
I'm going to biz off to Tulum.
Yeah.
No, but he got rejected. He sent 24 emails to one CEO before the CEO was like, yeah, I'll have a chat with you to get a job, and hired him as a salesperson because he was so persistent. He was fucking terrible at sales.
Yeah.
But they gave him the job because he was so
amazing.
persistent.
Tim Ferriss is great.
Yeah. I'm enjoying the book. It's good.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of his blogs before, so I'm familiar, but yeah. Anyway, before we kind of like wind down, I want to get into microdosing, because this is something that I think is definitely a topic of the moment. I think people are interested in it. I know a lot of my friends microdose and on different substances. When we met last time, we were speaking about ayahuasca and like how I really want to go to Tulum and do that, and Boo for the Frog and like all these kind of things. And I genuinely believe that, and I'm not sitting here saying I'm doing psychedelics every single day, but I do think there is a huge...
Just Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, just Saturdays, Fridays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. What's today? Monday. Yeah, definitely Monday at 9 a.m. But I think there is a lot of untapped power and potential in psychedelics on not only your potential in your career and your life, but also in your mental health. And, there's been loads of studies done on psilocybin around how, treatment with psilocybin can cure things like addiction and eating disorders and mental health issues of all different natures. So what's your experience been with that?
Oh, firstly, I'd say you can't microdose ayahuasca. So,
that'd be strange.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't.
Don't do that.
Nothing would happen. It's a macro dose or nothing. And so there's no getting around that. You're either in or out. And yeah, ayahuasca was probably the most impactful thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done it many, many times over my life. And every single time it's incredible. And I learn new things, and it's helped me be
How did you get into it?
Actually, this is a different period in my life when I had depression. My dad had died, and I'd been depressed for about a year. And the problem with, there's different types of depression that you can get. And like I said, nutrition can impact can give you depression. So can your environment, so can so many things. But depression from grief, from losing someone you love, is a very common form of depression, and not really curable other than time, right? So I was just really down the whole time.
Yeah.
And my best friend was like, this is exhausting, because I'd gone from like very half full to half empty, and I was kind of miserable to be around. And I was just saying no to going out to stuff. And he dragged me to a dinner, and we were at like a private dinner. There's 10 entrepreneurs there. There was just some guy talking about ayahuasca, and I'd never heard of it. And I was like, that sounds horrible. Like, what is that? And he was explaining it, and I was like, oh, no thanks, not for me. I mean, that was my answer to everything, so I was depressed. And my friend Rob was like, I think you should do this. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. And he's like, I would go and do it with you. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And he's like, listen, this is like not you. And you've been this way for about a year. Or what would you rather? Like, stay like this for an indeterminate amount of time, or try and do something to fix it? And I was having therapy and stuff, but nothing was really working. And I was like, okay, that's actually a fair pitch. Why not? And so we went to the countryside with like these shamans that were recommended to us by the person who did it, and had a life-changing experience. And I honestly, like, essentially had my depression. I confronted my depression. I saw my dad. Like, I had this whole like incredible experience where I completely lost the... I think part of the depression for me was the fact that I had quite a nihilistic view on stuff. Like, I didn't believe in the afterlife, and I don't believe in God, and therefore my dad was dead and that was it. Whereas what this gave me was like a newfound spiritual belief that I didn't know that I had within me. And so I did a complete 180 on all of my beliefs. And I came to like the Sunday morning just like so connected to everything and everyone, and was like glowing. Like, to the point where I told my team I was going to a yoga retreat over the weekend, because I wasn't really sure what to say. And I came back glowing, and everyone was like, where was this yoga retreat? I want to go to that. And so I like basically told them, and then they were like, oh, I don't want to go to that. But it was a life-changing moment for me. And changed my opinion on psychedelics. And, in general, drugs obviously get a bad rep because of the 60s and 70s, the war on drugs, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, like all of that kind of stuff. But in reality...
This is your brain on drugs.
This is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
But in reality, David Nutt in the UK did the whole... the government was stupid enough to actually hire a professional scientist and ask them to reveal the truth. And the truth is that alcohol is poison and drugs are pretty fine.
Yeah.
And so they were like, no, that wasn't what we wanted you to say. And it's like, well, that's the science. And so as a result, there's been much more of a scientific revolution around the impact of psychedelics particularly. But like, there's obviously a big difference between recreational drugs and therapeutic. Yeah. Right? And so there's nothing recreational about ayahuasca. You cannot go and take that in a rave. At all.
Might die.
I don't think anyone should ever try and find out what that's like. So you need to be with shamans or therapists or somewhere very safe to be doing
space.
That. Yeah. But nowadays, ketamine therapy, MDMA therapy. I was going to bring
that up, ketamine therapy.
Yeah, incredible. Like incredible impact on people's mental health, right?
Some of the greatest breakthroughs. It just completely expands your brain to stuff that you just otherwise don't have access to.
Well, I think what it does, it helps you. A lot of this stuff is problems with your ego and being too self-centered and too within your own narrative, your own self. And what this does is enables you to disassociate with your ego and observe your ego almost like objectionally as a different entity, if you will. I've read so many books on spirituality ever since, and there are many good framings for this. Like when you talk to yourself, who are you talking to? So who are you talking to? You are the person talking to the other person being your ego. That's very confusing, because that suddenly means I've got two people in my head, but I'm one person. But when you refer to like myself as I, what are you doing? You're referring to yourself in the third person. All the behaviors and things we do and the way that we actually think and communicate, they all kind of confirm that there are two of us in there. It's like one is like
the chimp and the chimp paradox. Yeah.
And so one of them is like your ego and one of them is this other. And so what the psychedelic drugs in the right settings enable you to do is sort of separate yourself out and have a conversation with your ego to try and straighten it out, in theory. I haven't done ketamine therapy. So
would you?
Oh, absolutely. But with the stuff, I feel like you need a need.
Yeah, particularly with that, I feel like I've got a friend that's done it, and she did it for some trauma that she was dealing with, and she said it was fucking unbelievable. Yeah, and
I would believe that completely. I think when you're doing therapy, so I almost did. I wanted to do ketamine therapy actually for relationship therapy last year with my wife, but we couldn't find anyone to do it. The only person that we could find was to do MDMA therapy, and I was open to it. but I was sort of less interested. Like for some reason, I was just really into trying to do ketamine therapy. So because that was in my head.
My marketing manager's giggling.
I guess because that was in my head, I was a bit like, I don't want to do MDMA therapy because it sounds like second rate.
Yeah.
That's not even true. I have no idea, right? Because I never ended up doing it. But I should have at least explored one of them. I think the idea of being with a professional trained therapist, which is, by the way, how in the 60s it all started.
Yeah.
You had psychologists who were administering ketamine or MDMA to people and going through a proper process. And it was responsible. And it was responsible dosing. But then it all got out of control. So I think there's a massive space for that. It's super interesting. I just think you kind of need to go to Amsterdam or somewhere to get, because they've got clinics there, or LA. You know, you can go to places, just in London, not so much. But I've invested in a company called Clerkenwell Health, and they basically build they're building the therapeutic centers.
Right.
Because other people are doing the compounds, lots of people are doing the training, but actually this stuff is going to take off.
Yeah.
And what you need is professional places that people feel safe and responsible and they're welcoming, and all this stuff's really interesting. So it's like almost investing in the infrastructure for this, right? Like, does it need to look like a Fora? Or does it need to look like, you know, a Shoreditch? Or does it need to look like a, you know, a dental surgery?
A clinic,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, there's different theories on that. But fundamentally, these people can't just go to your home and make you feel safe doing it. You kind of want to go somewhere where you feel safe in their environment. So I think it's a really interesting, like, space that's going to blow up. And then for microdosing, honestly, I haven't done it for quite a long time. But when I was doing it, I thought it was great. The problem with microdosing, generally speaking, is if you get the dose slightly wrong, you either feel nothing at all and it's pointless, or you basically accidentally got high and then you can't work that day. It's fun, but it's kind of not what you were doing it for. So, you know, it's so precise that I was just like, screw it, this is painful.
Yeah, it's too much to deal with everything else.
Yeah, totally.
So we've kind of like gone all the way the round houses. I want to kind of bring it back to secret leaders before we've been talking for nearly an hour and a half now.
Well, you're going to struggle with the edit.
Yeah, well, not my problem.
I always say that when I get told I've gone over.
That's a you problem. Secret Leaders, incredible podcast, and it is in part how I came across you in the first place after kind of discovering you on Dive the CEO when I used to listen to it religiously back in the day. Did the podcast, again, like the newsletter, start as a way to drive traffic through to the company? Or
No. I started Secret Leaders before Heights.
Yeah. You have now a media company, don't you?
Yeah. So I started it because I wanted to interview interesting entrepreneurs. You know, I was that guy on LinkedIn that I'm complaining about, right? I was asking people, can I go for a coffee? Can I get 20 minutes of your time? Whatever it is. Can I pick your brain? Stupid words like that. Which is, don't ever say that to anyone.
Circle back is worse.
Yeah, true. Don't circle jerk anyone.
That's terrible
not what you
idea.
Said. Not what you said. But it's what you meant. So I was just like, this is a much better way. And it was 2017. No one was doing podcasts. So I was like, okay, screw it. And, you know, Stephen Bartlett was the fourth person I ever interviewed. I was the first podcast he ever went on. Yeah. So I was really early in the game, and it was awesome. And I was meeting all my heroes, and I was doing, like, you know, free mentoring session for an hour and a half with every single one of them, basically. And it grew. And over a period of time, actually share like what's happened now. Over a period of time, 2020 turned up, and I was like, I want to focus on Heights as much as I possibly can. So I hired someone to run the company. With that person, we basically turned it into a media company, launched other titles, and that's gone really well up until now. But actually, I've decided I don't want to do that, and I want to just focus on Secret Leaders. So what we've done instead is sold the other titles, which is actually great. So that's put us in like a nice position. And, you know, I spent quite a lot of time over the last year with Chris Donnelly. So you've probably seen his stuff on social. He's like
blown up massively on TikTok, hasn't he? He's doing a great job.
Yeah. And he's obsessed with Secret Leaders. Like, he's listened to every episode, he reckons, ever. And so he, you know, he'd always used to message me like, love this episode. And I interviewed the founder of Monzo, Tom Blomfeld, about his mental health and stuff, you know, right after he left Monzo. It was like the first interview he did. And because most of my guests listen to the show now, so that's always a really good thing. And so Tom came on, and he was talking about elderly care or something like that, and Chris was listening to this episode and was like, God, we've got to get to Tom. And so I did an intro, and they met, and Tom became their first investor. So he's always had a big soft spot for Secret Leaders. I was down the pub with him telling him that, I was probably on my non-alcoholic beer. He was probably on his 5th beer. And I was just telling him, I'm selling off these titles. I'm just like done with that. I want to focus on Secret Leaders, but I want to build it on YouTube now. I'm sort of finally ready for that. Spent my 2 years building, or a year and a half building my personal brand now, getting a bit outside my comfort zone, doing video and other things like that. Finally ready to do something on YouTube there. But YouTube, you kind of need focus and effort and energy, which is why I don't want this multi-podcast company anymore. So he was like, that sounds really interesting. I'd love to do that with you. So he's bought out my partner and we're building Secret Leaders sort of from scratch. Like not really, it's carrying on as it was, but really from YouTube from scratch together. And I'm really excited. It's like a brand new journey for both of us. And I think it'll be wicked. Like I really enjoy working with him. We've been working together with our producer, spending more time together, seeing how it would work with sort of co-hosts and what other kind of episodes we'd make. It's actually really exciting and fun. And like I said, the only people I've ever worked with have all been very private. Working with someone who actually really believes in distribution and personal brand, who inspires me. Almost all of my inspiration, confidence, and, encouragement comes from Chris. Like he's been dragging me to it, like a lot. Behind the scenes, because he's always been like, it's so ridiculous you've got Secret Leaders and you don't do all this stuff. And I've always been like, I know, but I just like the ick and all this stuff, all the normal stuff. So
British sentiment.
Totally. So I feel in part like I owe him because he really pushed me to do it and really has helped and supported me. And at the same time, so it feels like a mutual respect, right? He's got me off my ass to do it. And at the same time, he really wants to like blow this up together. So I feel like it's at an inflection point now where I'm really excited about it.
I also think the two of you together is such a good brand alignment.
We think very differently actually about entrepreneurship, which is great.
But that's why it works.
Yeah, it is.
Like if you look at your content, it's similar but opposite. Like you both have completely different. The way it's presented is very similar, but you have very, very different points of view, and that's why I think it's going to work so well.
Yeah. And we were doing some demo tests and like conversations and stuff, and it was funny because we were just like arguing completely. I was like, I love that. No,
positive tension is a great thing.
Totally, it's actually great. Like overarching, we have similar views, and we think we're good judge of character and can smell bullshit. But like we actually think, I'm really into inspirational founders who are trying to change the world and stuff, and he's just like, yeah, but none of them are making money. And like they're all fucking poor and they're just making money for their VCs. And it might be true, but they're going to change the world. And he's like, who fucking cares? Like, I built this little agency and have like more profit from 5 people than that person with a 300-person company. And it's funny. You're arguing about this stuff. He's right, but I'm also right. And you get this really interesting, like rounded view on what good entrepreneurship looks like.
I'm so excited to see that. When is that taking off? Because I can't wait.
It'll be September. So we're doing our first interviews this Friday.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah. I love that kind of positive tension dynamic between people. Yeah. Particularly with you guys. I think it's like a little bromance that's just, I can't wait for the world to see it. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
I hope it comes out well, not just like
not just you fighting.
Two pathetic weirdos.
The last thing I want to touch on is personal brand. You kind of segued into it a little bit there around like Chris gets distribution, and like that's evident from how much effort and time and no doubt money he's pumped into it over the last kind of 2 to 3 years. To anyone that is in a situation where you were 18 months ago, you're like, gives me the ick, don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. What advice would you give them, and what impact is building your personal brand had on your business and on your career?
Yeah. So I would say, for starters, it's storytelling, right? So it's actually learning. So learning the art of storytelling is really valuable. What I find challenging is I'm not really selling anything to people. Like, sure, I'm selling pills, but like any good dealer. But really, I'm not
selling drugs for profits and fun.
Exactly. But in reality, you can't. That doesn't work on personal brand. Like, really, that's not really how you do that. So most people who I think do this really well are selling a cert. They're B2B.
Yeah.
And most of the people that I know, like with the exception really of maybe only Simon Squibb. I love
his content.
Yeah. Of my good friends, of which he is one of them. And I was one of the first people like that he met when he came to London. We met over COVID, actually. He'd like just come to London from Hong Kong. COVID had happened, and he was living in Belsize Park, and I lived in Camden, and we like randomly met online. He had like no followers, and we just became friends, and would go to like Gales every week together and stuff, like on our little only walk we were allowed.
And your 1 hour a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's been really nice supporting him on his journey because, like, seeing him blow up has been fantastic. He's another person who's invested a lot of money, so I think there's the other side of it is like. Simon's very open about this. Chris is pretty open about this. Like, they've invested hundreds of thousands of pounds into growing like to millions in the audience. That's something that people forget about. Like, it can cost a lot of money to do it. I've not done that. Like, I've spent like virtually nothing. And so I've been growing a lot slower, but I'm actually okay with that. And I think the other side of it is, you know, Simon's not selling anything. And I'm not selling anything. And I think that can be a downside, because there's no real call to action. There's no real like need. There's no like, you know, wait till next time to get X, Y, Z. So you've got to figure out sort of a different strategy.
What's your goal?
You know, at the moment, it's literally just to build an audience because I'm enjoying the art of storytelling. And so I don't have like an end goal where I'm suddenly going to flip to B2B and start selling courses, or, you know, I don't have a personal thing like that yet. And actually, I launched a personal newsletter. I've done the newsletter from Heights for so long that I want to launch my own newsletter about entrepreneurship and stuff like that, which, you know, so I'm building my own audience online. It's small. It's only 5,000 people in the newsletter so far.
That's not small. 5,000 people is huge.
It's, yeah. I mean, I compare it to other people.
Such a fucking pet peeve of mine. Like, sorry to get aggressive when people say that. They go, oh, I've only got 5,000. What do you mean you only have 5,000? Imagine if there's 5,000 people standing out here right now waiting for you to say what you were going to say once a week.
I don't think they are, though.
No, but that's the reality. Like, people get so worked up and like
by the big numbers,
because they see that these people have got millions of followers. Like, imagine if you had even 100 people in this room right now waiting on bated breath for what you had to say.
It's true.
That's what those 5,000 people are doing.
Yeah, it's true. And so I do, so like, I'm happy to have that newsletter audience, and I'm enjoying growing it. And it's like a really good creative outlet for me as well. So the thing is, I do a word for the year each year. Instead of a resolution, I do a word. I find it much more impactful for me.
Yeah.
And so last year, my word was confidence. And my confidence thing was, I'm going to post every day on LinkedIn and Twitter, every single day. And that was the start of my personal brand journey. This year, my word's been creativity. And because I like writing so much, I was like, well, I'm going to start with newsletter. Over the weekend, I did pottery and an art class, you know, so I'm like, you know, trying to make sure I'm not just being work.
A one-trick pony.
Yeah. And I'll be launching a YouTube, right? So it's, you know, I'm trying to.
I thought you were about to say I'm going to be launching a pottery class.
No, I will not be launching that. No one.
I was going to say, that's not what you told me in the lift.
No one wants to see my shit. So, you know, I'm trying to bring my version of creativity into the things that I'm doing this year. But what I would say to people who are maybe in my area, which is building a company and sort of working out if you're interesting enough to build a personal brand. I think if you're in B2B, you should. Like, it's your job anyway to tell people that that's your literal business. But I think it's completely authentically true. If you're in B2B and you're not building a personal brand, I think that's madness. If you're in B2C, I don't think you do need to build a personal brand, but it's a nice to have. B, the next time you launch a company, if this company fails and then you want to start a new one and you don't have an audience, you start from scratch. That's kind of dumb. The number one reason that I think about doing this now is because I believe that in the future, with AI as well, making all jobs commodities and all of this kind of stuff, I do feel like there's, you know, value in building reputation over time and trust, no matter what you do. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you have valuable skills and a way of thinking that might be interesting to a certain group of people, it's actually a shame. You're doing yourself a disservice to not bring that into a personal audience that you can own as well, that will last. So I said to you before, I want to do different categories every single time. So, you know, if and when I sell Heights, I won't do a health business again. I'll do something else. I don't know what that is, but I will do something else from scratch. Yeah, it gives me options. Exactly. And, you know, by that time I might have, 20,000, 30, however many in my newsletter audience, I'll be able to take them on the journey with me. And I think that's much more interesting. So it's thinking about stuff for the long term. And I think that's really, really, really important. And I think still so many people don't do it.
I think the number one most valuable asset a business can have is attention. And you see it time and time again with like the rise of influencers and UGC and like individuals within a business, including the founder, get 561% more reach online than a company brand with exactly the same message.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It just gets you. It doesn't matter whether it's, to me, B2C or B2B. It's about attention and like how can you get as much attention on your brand as humanly possible, and they're the ones that win. Ultimately. Yeah,
totally. Look, the other thing is by building a little personal brand, you get attention from the right people. You know, like
in rooms you otherwise don't have access to.
That influencers who actually, you don't know who's reading your content and who likes it, and actually they don't always make themselves known, but occasionally they will be like, you know what, I actually love your content. You're like, you read my content, that's so nice. So you just don't know. And so it increases your surface area of luck.
What's the one thing that was a bit of a revelation for you in your personal branding journey? Was the thing you were like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be a byproduct, or I didn't realize that about myself?
Well, I think the number one upskill that I've learned in general about how to write good content is writing a good hook. So what was interesting to me is I thought I was a good writer. But actually being a good writer for social media reach is really, really different. So I've really enjoyed the learning curve of that. It took me about 6 months. Now, people could tell me what they want to write and I could rewrite their hook in seconds and like be confident that if you A/B tested that, my version of that would absolutely fly. That's what writing for 6 months every day of anything does, right? You literally figure it out and you learn by taking an interest in something. On a personal view, to be honest with you, there's a saying in neuroscience, which is when you read something, you learn it once, and when you share it, you learn it twice. And so one of the things I've loved doing in like my newsletter, for example, and on my LinkedIn is most of the stuff I read is, I'd say half the stuff I read is in health, and I'm awful with fiction, but like everything's non-fiction. So half the stuff's in health, half the stuff's in business. I've always had an outlet to write about health, and it's been cementing a lot of things in my mind. I never really had that outlet for business. And so now, 99% of the stuff that I do on LinkedIn or Twitter is either a cross-section of health and entrepreneurship or business, or more business if it's LinkedIn. It's helped me learn things and then figure out how to rewrite them in a way that's actually meaningful, cements it more in my brain. So it's sort of like a process of repetition and figuring out the way to communicate actually makes you a smarter person. If you're reading with an intention of understanding, you need to communicate this to other people in a way that makes sense. If you want to actually demonstrate that you understand something, you've got to figure out how to write it in a simple way. I
think writing is one of the most undervalued skills. Like writing is everything. Like communication is everything. And it's interesting actually you said about the hook piece on social media. To me, the difference between storytelling in long form versus social media is long form, you build a story up, short form, you break a story down.
Totally.
And I think it's really difficult, particularly if you've come from a long form background, to kind of segue into social media.
Totally. And I'm long form.
So different.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like newsletters and podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So I've had to totally reframe like my whole brain on this, but I've enjoyed the process.
I love that.
It feels tacky compared to what I like. I'm like sophisticated, long form newsletter writer. Not big words, but proper stories, not written like I need to grab everyone's attention.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I said this to someone recently where they were like, even the, line spacing on LinkedIn, they were mocking me. And I was like, you know what, there's two types of people who do line spacing on LinkedIn because it works, and those who can't build an audience on LinkedIn.
I love that.
I was like, I think it's stupid too.
But it works.
But it works. And so like, what do I want to do? Be the smartest knob in the room, like criticize everyone else, or build an audience on LinkedIn? I had two choices. I want to build an audience on LinkedIn, so I'm going to do the line spacing. You can choose your path too. It's true. It's an annoying thing. They're right. But if it works, it works.
It works.
Yeah.
I love that. Removing your ego from the situation. Just
totally.
like A/B test, go with the optimization.
Yeah. And the best way to remove your ego is to set yourself a target, like every 3 days, 3 times a week, every day, whatever your thing is. And just push through the pain and do it.
It's quite remarkable how detached emotionally you become from your content once you do things like that. Yep. I have 7 posts a week I have to do.
Yep.
I don't give a shit about any of that. I give a shit about what I'm saying. I don't give a shit about the results I get.
Completely the same now. Yeah. And I used to agonize over every single post. What's this person going to think of me? Is the grammar okay? Yada, yada, yada. Now I'm just like, I've got 7 to do.
Yeah.
1 of them will bang.
Yeah.
6 or not. That's all right.
That's kind of like life, really, though, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
Final question.
Yes.
This is something I ask everyone.
Yes.
I always say just fucking post it. And for me, that's a fucking philosophy of my life. I'm like, just do it. Like, I joked earlier about my life being set up for a dinner party anecdote, but genuinely, I think that, like, your life is a story and it's what you make of it that is what the story is written. If you could leave the world with one very powerful, clear, like a die on my tombstone message, what would that be?
Probably the more you think about yourself, the unhappier you'll be. The more you think about other people, the happier you'll be. And that's a very hard thing to face, confront, and realize. And it takes time. But, I think there's a lot. I've spent so much time researching mental health. I'm big into, I thought that one of the best books I ever read was The Body Keeps the Score, which is a book on trauma. And I found it super helpful. And I found therapy helpful and all of this stuff. At the same time, after a while, I realized that there's a toxicity to all of it as well, which is that okay, I unpacked some things and they were helpful. But all that time I spent thinking of me, I'm basically feeding my ego and my victimhood and my damaged soul and the past. And none of that does very much to like help the future or create any impact or improvements for me. And so there are extreme times where it's really important to do that stuff. But I did sort of like have a moment where I suddenly reflected, oh, actually, when I'm thinking about helping a person or like calling up a friend and helping them out, whatever the thing is, I'm happier. So I think it's like, you know, especially if you're Gen Z, you know, people are so consumed in trauma and trauma stories and what they're served in trauma and then just thinking about me. And the victimhood narrative is really taken hold in society. And I get that because a lot of the literature is actually very compelling and good about it. But I don't think it helps. I actually think what helps is thinking about how to help other people. So I think long term that is going to shift as well, hopefully. And that's how we make a better society, like helping others.
I completely agree with that as well. I think it's really important to have awareness and self-awareness for yourself and how you think and how you behave and what that does. But actually, when you focus that on other people, it becomes incredibly more powerful for yourself and for everyone else. There is such thing as being too self-aware, I think, and too in your brain and spending too much time in your head, which stops you from reaching your potential.
I think a good summary for it is just be a good friend. Like if you're a good friend, you'll probably have a good friend back. You only really need one great friend, but you know, ideally more. But on average, you know, there's so many stats about how people have zero friends, and that's a two-way street. You have zero friends probably because you weren't a good friend in the first place, or you didn't take the move to look after someone else, or whatever the thing is. It always takes two to tango. Yeah. So I think that focus would do a lot better in society. It's like when it's always someone, if someone else is always the problem, you need to look at yourself because you've got to be the problem. Yeah. Dan, thank you so much for being on Branded. I could keep talking for another hour, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting pressured from my team to cut it off because we should have cut it off about half an hour ago. Yeah. No, trust me, I can't. Thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. I absolutely love doing these podcasts, and I would be able to reach a hell of a lot more people if you like and subscribe. So thank you to all of you who have already liked and subscribed. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review so we can reach more people.